We're going to be talking sort of personal finance and business finance on the show today. I don't know if you've heard, but from June the 1st, banking in the UAE could potentially be getting more expensive, especially if you're not maintaining the required minimum balance. Several banks are hiking the threshold for business accounts from around 10,000 AED to 15,000 AED, with monthly penalties of up to 150 AED if you fall short. And if you're a personal account holder, you could also be faced with a minimum balance requirements of 3,000 dirhams or 5,000 dirhams, depending on the bank, and charges of up to 50 dirhams a month if you don't meet them. Now, the shift is raising some concerns for small business owners, those people that are freelancers and low-income earners in the Emirate, especially here as the cost of living continues to climb. So what's driving these changes? I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Vijay Valecha. He's Chief Investment Officer at Century Financial on Microsoft Teams. Hi, Vijay. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi, Katie. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for your time today. I just want to know, what's driving these changes? Why are UAE banks raising minimum balance requirements now?
Well, it is something which was coming from a very long time. It was a policy which actually has been in the works for almost 5 years now. Banks are increasingly facing higher and higher cost every day when to operate and to maintain old bank accounts. And those costs keep increasing every day. With that coming in, AI might reduce these costs going in the future. But as of now, every single account requires a KYC rebalancing every year. Every single account requires a check every year. There's a liveliness check that has been introduced recently. So there are a lot of checks that have to be operated by banks on a day-to-day, on a yearly basis for every single account. The more the number of accounts, the more difficult it becomes for a bank to handle these operations. Hence, what they want is to have more meaningful accounts and have less meaningful accounts to be gone from the system.
So they want people that will actually use their accounts, move kind of money around, move money in, move money out, rather than just having this kind of small balance that doesn't kind of help the bank at all. We've heard that these changes are going to be affecting business accounts first, but there's also talk of individual accounts being affected by this.
So business accounts is something which, honestly speaking, I feel that the minimum balance going from 10 to 15 also doesn't make much of a difference. There are a lot of companies in UAE which are not really operational and they're just here for the banking. And those companies should have a much higher minimum balance. So I think the law is very justified when it comes out to increasing the minimum balance requirements for companies. At the same time, they can definitely have a much better segregation for all those companies, which companies ought to be having a high minimum balance and which companies do not. Just like, you said, a lot of individual owners, of financial influencers, just regular freelancers, a lot of people who really do not, who have a one-person company. This minimum balance becomes a deterrent from actually coming into the UAE. So those segregations have to take place, and I'm sure the government will be thinking of those. But in general, the increase in balances for companies is a very good structure for the country and the banks overall.
So what kind of penalties could individual customers face if they don't meet the new thresholds?
It depends from bank to bank. We have some banks who are saying they'll be charging around 25 dirhams monthly, and some banks will be charging 50 dirhams monthly for not being able to maintain the minimum balance. However, that being said, we have to realize that it's not just a minimum balance that the banks are asking for. If someone actually has a salary of more than 15,000 dirhams coming in monthly, they do not get affected by this rule. If somebody actually holds a deposit of more than 20,000 dirhams in the bank, they do not get affected by this rule. For people between the 5 and 15K bracket salary, which is quite a large number of population in this part of the world, for those people, what happens is they need to either have credit cards from the same bank or a loan facility from the same bank to waive off these charges.
We've just had a question in, Vijay, I don't know if you can answer it, from Laura, saying if the minimum bank balance for small businesses like ours rises, will we also receive a higher interest rate on the funds of our accounts?
That's quite wishful. Unfortunately, that's not how it will work. The interest rates will be determined by Fed, and by the looks of it, the Fed is looking for a 50 basis points cut this year. So I think interest rates are going to reduce for everyone.
Thank you for clarifying that for Laura. Just final question from me. How do these changes with the banking system in the UAE compare to, say, the banking norms elsewhere in the world?
Well, different countries have different rules. If we look back in India, there's no minimum account balance sizes for people. That's, of course, because the population is really high. In the US, a lot of banks like Bank of America do have a minimum of $1,500, which is quite comparable to the 5,000 that we are expecting over here. So I think Dubai is pretty much following those kind of regimes. A lot of countries in the East as well do not have minimum balances. But that being said, they don't have too much of an expat population as well. So because UAE has a huge expat population, this law makes much more sense.
Thank you, Vijay. That was the voice of Vijay Valecha. He's Chief Financial Officer at Century Financial, clearing up some of those questions around the rise in minimum balance requirements and perhaps the fees that people and businesses will have to be paying from June the 1st.